rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the Commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council for final action. For conditional use permits, the Commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedure requirements to allow an impartial and efficient hearing, and all Commission meetings are open to the public under the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, city staff will give a presentation of the case, followed by a presentation from the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the Commission chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information, clarification, or a rebuttal. The Commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant at the end of the dais. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already made by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation.
All right, good evening. I'd like to call the February 17, 2022 meeting of the Peoria Planning Zoning Commission to order. Thank you for the video. That was a refreshing change. I was waiting for the credits to come down at the end for all the participants there. We'll start out tonight with the roll call. Commissioners, please indicate your presence after I call your name. Vice Chair Tony Fighter.
Present.
Secretary Linda Grice.
Present.
Commissioner Sean Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff Nelson.
Present.
Commissioner Brad Schaefer.
Present.
Commissioner Josephine Waitman. And Chair is present. This is the final speaker request speaker request forms. If you'd like to address the commission tonight, please fill out a speaker request form. We have them available just outside the entrance to the chambers and up front at the podium. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion. First item on the consent agenda is 1C, disposition of absence, and 2C, minutes from the January 20, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Chair, I'll second that.
Thank you. Commissioners, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda for tonight is 3R, Circle K Conditional Use Permit, CU 21-12. Staff, please present your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I wanted to introduce our planner, Chris Jasper. He's going to be presenting the Circle K case this evening.
Thank you. This is my first presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission, so excited to meet you all. Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Chris Jasper. I'm the planner assigned to this case. It is case CU 2112 for a Circle K. So a bit of an overview on the project. The applicant on this one is Jill Kaiser of Land Development Consultants on behalf of Circle K. The location is at 6735 West Peoria Avenue in the Peoria Station Shopping Center. It's just under an acre, and the conditional use permit is to allow the demolition of an existing convenience store that is already a Circle K, a car wash, and a gas station and fuel pump. And the project would also include the construction of a new convenience store and gas station without a car wash. A little bit about the surrounding area. It is surrounded on all sides by commercial uses, and to the east, it is bordered by the city of Glendale. So to the north, you have the Crossroads Plaza Shopping Center, which is anchored by Goodwill. And to the east, you have the Westport Plaza Shopping Center with the Walmart Neighborhood Market as its anchor store, and the Peoria Station Shopping Center is located directly west and south. So what are they proposing to do at this location? So as mentioned previously, they'll be demolishing the existing Circle K buildings in order to construct a larger convenience store and reoriented and sort of new layout of a fuel canopy area. The project includes the removal of 2 existing on-site driveways, which are annotated on the site plan in the PowerPoint as those green hash marks. So there will be access provided immediately directly to the site on the west by an existing shared access driveway and to the south by another shared access driveway. The site includes 16 on-site parking stalls, which meets our requirements for the size and use of the proposed project, and it is intended to operate 24/7, which is the case for the existing Circle K convenience store. I've also provided an aerial image with the site plan with a note that left turns will not be possible from those existing driveways into and out of the site due to the existing medians on Peoria Avenue and 67th Avenue. A little bit of the history on this one. It was rezoned to intermediate commercial back in 1981. 5 years later, the initial conditional use permit was approved in 1986 for a mobile oil gas station, C-store, and car wash. In 2009, the site was redeveloped and rebranded as, well, not redeveloped, but rebranded as a Circle K facility. Going into the special limitations that are established in the zoning ordinance, and these apply to all gas service stations as defined by the zoning ordinance, it's required to have a minimum of 180 feet of arterial street frontage. Both Peoria Avenue and 67th Avenue are classified as arterial roads, and as you'll see on the next slide, this project meets that criteria. There's also a requirement that no part of any of the gas fuel station use be within 200 feet of any single-family residentially zoned lot. And this image is intended to show that that restriction is fairly easily met. You can almost see the red lines around the fuel container and the fuel canopy, the fuel tanks and the fuel canopy, and they do not get particularly close to any residentially zoned lot. So that restriction was met. And the site plan on the slide demonstrates that it meets the arterial frontage requirement. Additional limitations include a requirement that all fuel pump mechanisms be covered by canopy, which is the case in this instance. All under canopy mounted lights must be flush with the underside of the canopy, which will be enforced through the site plan process. I should also note that the Circle K is under review currently as site plan case SP 2120. And finally, the final restriction, is that fuel tanks larger than 1,000 gallons must be located underground, and that is the case in this instance as well. So all requirements are met. The CUP process means that conditions can be imposed by the commission for any items including restriction on operating hours, screening, the relocation of any drive-through facilities, noise and visual modifications, or other appropriate measures. After reviewing the narrative associated with this CUP and preliminary reviews of the site plan associated with it, staff is recommending that no additional measures are necessary. Getting into some of the procedures associated with this conditional use permit, as per the zoning ordinance requirements, we did provide a notice of application and a notice of hearing to all properties within 600 feet and all registered HOAs. We published a legal ad in the Peoria Times, and the site was posted in accordance with our requirements, and an affidavit of signposting was provided. A neighborhood meeting was not required as no opposition was received by the city. No support was provided as well, so no correspondence of any type was sent to the city. So based on an analysis of the conditional use permit narrative and materials submitted, the proposal complies with all of the standards and limitations that are identified within the zoning ordinance within Section 21505A5. There is no anticipated impact on the adjacent properties and uses, and the applicant has provided a signed, notarized Proposition 207 waiver. And so, based on all that information, staff is recommending approval of case CU 2112, subject to the conditions of approval outlined in Exhibit 1 of your staff report.
Thank you, Chris, appreciate it. Sounds like you've done that 1,000 times, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. Excellent report. Just a couple of quick questions. I wasn't clear, are they putting new fuel storage tanks in, or are they using the existing ones?
I'm going to have to defer to the applicant on this.
Okay.
Jill, she is here.
Okay, thank you. I did have a second question. You want me to hold on that?
Oh, yes, Chair Commissioner.
Okay, the second one was so there's no car wash as part of this, right?
Chair Commissioner, yes, that is correct. There is
Okay.
no car wash
So
proposed.
if they
as part of
wanted to come back later and said, hey, we should have put a car wash in, do they have to come back to the commission, and would that be a new conditional use permit? Can they do it through an administrative review process? How would that occur?
Chair, Commissioner Nelson, the answer to that is when we typically look at a conditional use permit, the first stipulation within the packet you will see is that it needs to substantially meet the site plan that is included in there. If they were to come back with a car wash, we would need to look at the application to see if it was in substantial conformance or not. And I would defer to the gentleman at the end, but in most cases, because of the car wash, we do typically bring that back for consideration.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Before we have the applicant speak, do we have any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, with the applicant, please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jill Kaiser, as Chris so eloquently introduced me. Thank you. You did a great job, by the way. I was in Florence for 4 hours today. You did an amazing job. If you wouldn't mind going back to the site plan for me, Chris put together a fantastic presentation on our behalf. And to answer your question directly, Commissioner Nelson, yes, we will be removing the fuel tanks the existing underground storage tanks. I'm trying to see if we could show you where they are on that. It's hard to see. I don't know if you could notate them, Chris, on the underline. But anyhow, yes, we will be removing them and then putting in brand new ones. And they will be going underground. And if you look right up to the northwest-east corner of the site, that diagram is the fuel tank diagram. To the northeast corner of the canopy. I don't know if you have a pointer, Chris, but that would be great. That's the fuel, that's okay, that's a fuel tank yard, if you will, and they'll be underground there.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
So in essence, to piggyback on Chris's presentation, Circle K is very excited to take down, completely demolish the existing store, which is quite dated, to bring a fresh appearance to the center and hopefully bring the center up to current standards from a development and design perspective. I believe the neighbors, from what we can tell, are very excited for this new development to go into that corner. And the circulation is much better than what is currently there. Closing off the driveways is definitely going to help the traffic and safety issues of the intersection. And we have a great relationship with the owner. We're a tenant, so we have a great relationship with the owner and allowing us to have the cross accesses that we have to utilize those driveways. And really, that's all I have. It's a pretty cut and dry case, and we hope that we have your consideration. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. We do have a question from Commissioner Fider.
Yeah, you actually just touched on it. Thank you. I just wanted to understand the driveways. You're closing one on Peoria, one on 67th, and then you're utilizing cross-access. Do you have, pull that aerial back up?
Sure. You got that right there? Yeah. So the existing driveways as they stand today are the green hatched areas.
Those are existing.
Those are existing.
The two that are hashed are going to be closed off,
Correct.
and then,
And the two shared drive, so off of Peoria, it's notated right there, you can see the arrows. That's existing as well. And the off 67th, it's right at the very bottom of the screen. And then there's actually 3 more continuing down 67th Avenue also that could be used. We have shared access throughout the center.
great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do any other commissioners have questions or comments from the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any members of the public who wish to comment? No speaker request forms, all right. Commissioners, do we have a motion on item 3R?
Chairman, I recommend approval of case CU 21-12, subject to conditions of approval outlined in Exhibit 1 of staff report.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Thank you. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda for tonight, item 4R, study session, workforce development. This is for discussion only. No action will be taken. Staff, please present your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, as you recall, at our last commission meeting, we had a study session on our upcoming work plan. We also talked about a number of topics that we thought would help frame and provide context to some of the discussions we have at the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know one of those topics that were of keen interest was economic development efforts, workforce development, and how the types of resources we provide to business and compete for jobs. So tonight, we're very pleased to have our Economic Development Department, as well as Peoria Forward tonight to discuss some of those efforts. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Jennifer Stein. She wears two hats. She's our Office of Communications Director, but she's also our Interim Economic Development Director as well. So, Jen?
Thank you, Director Hawkes, and good evening, Chairman and members of the Commission. All right. So one of the biggest factors companies, brokers, developers look at when determining whether they want to locate or expand into a city is the workforce. And fortunately, Peoria has a really strong workforce, and we work really hard to support the workforce development and helping not only our business attraction efforts in bringing in companies, but also our existing companies, giving them an opportunity to our resources to help make sure and ensure they have a successful, strong labor pool. And I know everyone's heard lately that it's been a challenge for some people. It is, finding those highly skilled or the right fit for various positions. So that is why I'm excited tonight to be here with the team to present some of the programs and resources we are making available to help our business community. So we're going to highlight our workforce efforts in collaboration with Westmark. We will briefly talk about our SBDC partnership and how invaluable that resource is in our city. And then ASU Peoria Forward, I'm going to leave that to Kristen Slice, who's at the end, to really delve into that. But that is an incredible partnership that we really value and have seen incredible outcomes. We also will talk about briefly our business concierge service and some of the ways we internally work with city departments to offer support. And then we have a cool everyday entrepreneur video, and you may be seeing open for business videos as well to get the word out on business, our small business community, and help promote and encourage people to support local. And then some of the restrictions that affected a number of our businesses, how did we during that time help with their workforce needs? So you might be familiar with our Peoria Business Concierge Service. Peoria deeply cares about the business community, and their success is our success. So we want to make sure we're their first point of contact, and we can help them when they come into the city, guide them and navigate them through the various services, whether it's how to obtain a business license, where to go for a permit. We want to make sure we provide outstanding service, and they know that we're alongside. And we do this also through communication by making sure they're well aware and informed of not only the resources, but upcoming events or programs. So through our business briefs, we consistently share information. And hopefully you receive our business brief. We can make sure you do if you don't, because it really has a lot of great information and tools in there. And then again, Kristen Slice is going to talk more about ASU Peoria Forward, but it is a great partnership. It's an initiative that started about 4 years ago, and we're excited to be talking about the next 2 years. It really has built a strong ecosystem in providing incredible programming and training for entrepreneurs. And we have Pop-Up Peoria at Park West, which is it's a storefront community gathering space that really has provided opportunity for programming to be held at Pop-Up Peoria, and we've done a lot of great events there. So I'm going to go ahead and I won't give away too much of your presentation. And then another great resource is the SBDC, which we had a unique partnership starting in 2016. And initially it was designed for businesses that were early startup and adoption, but now it really is a full service resource. And during the pandemic, they helped administer and execute some of the grants that we and the federal government had available. They served as a navigator to help businesses, go through that experience successfully. And we have a dedicated SBDC personnel that also provides a number of training opportunities. Most of it's been done virtually, just because of the situation the last few years, but they're starting to do, in-person counseling and one-on-one interactions. So now I'd like to turn it over to our Chief Business Attraction Officer, David Valenzuela, who will talk about our workforce development partnerships.
Thank you. Chairman and members of the Commission, one of the first key parts of our workforce development efforts resides with Westmark. Now, probably about 10 years ago or so, City of Peoria realized that there was something that needed to be done for workforce development in the West Valley, and they began some efforts in that area. We had new staff at that time that were engaged in this effort. They began to get other partners that slowly became involved, turned over to Westmark, really ambitious and well-needed public-private partnership for the West Valley. Westmark took that and eventually turned that into the West Valley Pipeline Report, Building the Region's Talent 2023. Now, what this report showed, as you see with the strategies and goals, and what they did that was unique, was examine the gaps that existed regionally and then put together the plan that would fill the gaps with the necessary skill sets and the workforce that we needed for the businesses that we wanted to have. In speaking with Kirsten Hall about that program, she said it was actually rather unique in the country in the way they approached it on a regional level to fill those gaps. So City of Peoria staff had led that effort, ending up with Westmark, who put together all the different partners on the public and private side in order to show how we can provide that workforce at a later time. So Westmark has been a huge advocate for us and one that we're very excited to continue working with. We mentioned ASU as far as Peoria Forward, but from the workforce development side, this has been very critical to us. With TSMC locating into North Phoenix, ASU has been very involved in hiring practices and working to find staff for those new operations. At the same time, they're investing in semiconductor programs, especially on the fabrication side, which will only benefit all of us, especially us, because when you really look at North Phoenix, there's Peoria and there's North Phoenix. Surprise, Glendale, Scottsdale, a little far away, not as much land. So having ASU as a key partner up there, we're involved. Now, what ASU has is a career services department that helps engage with employers. You can become involved at different sponsorships levels if you'd like, and they will help you find employees, get access to ASU students as well as alumni, and various other resources that they have available. The cost is relatively nominal. I think TSMC paid something like $15,000, so it's not like it's a huge cost, but the services that they're getting back from ASU in that regard are huge. And from the workforce development side, like I said, certificates of semiconductor fabrication and electrical engineering are key things that they've put in place in order to get the skill sets put in place for ASU and the suppliers that we are chasing and that are a key part of our business attraction strategy. Grand Canyon University is relatively close to Peoria and is making great strides in both the degree programs as well as engaging with employers. Their services, what they call their strategic employer initiatives and internships, does two things. One, very similar, they engage directly with employers, but they also focus a lot on capstones, making sure that students have the opportunity to get into businesses with real world experience, and so that many of these students are actually staying with the companies after they graduate or have experience to go on otherwise. Skill set improvement, real world experience, Grand Canyon's been fantastic with that, and they will also do customized engagement for all of the employers that want to work with them. So very excited to be working with them in many of those capacities. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical is included in this, even though they're not necessarily in the Valley or West Valley, because this has almost been an overlooked asset in many ways, because they're not in the Valley. Now, being an MBA grad from Embry-Riddle, I know the programs, and so we engaged with them in January to talk with their career services team. They have electrical engineers, they have chemical engineers, they have process engineers, which are all vital to a lot of the industries that we're after, as well as cybersecurity, business. These are the types of people that we need, and the Embry-Riddle name and the reach is global. So we go through an Embry-Riddle, we reach a lot of people all over the world. They hold a lot of job fairs, but they are also open to having employers come on campus and establish job fairs specifically to them on their own. Very flexible and very interested in working more in the Valley, and we are actually, I think, the first city that has reached out to them to engage in this capacity. So that's the effort that we're trying to make in working with our education partners at the higher education levels. WestMech is especially critical to us on both the high school and the adult education training certificate programs, the CTE as we call it now within the high schools. WestMech has multiple campuses throughout the West Valley, but the actual district extends all the way into North Scottsdale. So very critical to make sure that we stay very close with them as we have employers come in. Many times we have called WestMech and say, these are the needs that they have. This is how they need to train their workers on an ongoing basis. WestMech can then create the programs, put them in place, and that is a huge that is a huge piece for employers. So WestMech, very valuable, and with the closest campus just a couple of miles away from some of our major industrial property. And as we look further, I think eventually we would like to even have a WestMech campus in North Peoria, just because they're going to need that. It's something that they have brought up, not necessarily us. So very excited to work with the WestMech in that regard. The community colleges, the Maricopa Community Colleges, are obviously a very important part of any workforce training program. Estrella Mountain has been particularly important because of the Southwest Skills Center, in addition to a lot of other programs that are directly tied to skill set enhancement and training. We also do engage with Glendale Community College, especially for many of our office users, especially in insurance and finance, where they have some certificates and associates coming out of that school that can be directly employed with those types of office users. As we have Stadium Point coming down the road, Glendale Community and Estrella are going to be very critical to filling the office space with the types of users that can use those types of students. Maricopa Community Colleges also has a lot of programs at the higher community district level where they can customize programs through any and all of their community college schools. So it's not even just focusing on those two. Even though those are West Valley focused, we always need to make sure that we look at education partners as places without walls. They are coming to the communities to make sure that they're serving the next generation of labor. As Jen mentioned, labor is scarce and a problem every single place. So what's going to differentiate yourself is how you present the resources that you have available, and Peoria has been making a lot of effort in that regard to make sure it's clear, direct, and extremely valuable to the employers we're working with. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Kristen.
Good evening, Chair. Hello, Commission. My name is Kristen Slice, and as was mentioned, I am with Arizona State University. I am part of the J. Orrin Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute. And I'd like to start this evening, if we don't mind, with a quick video. And we're going to pretend that the technology is just going to work on this one. We queued it up. Go ahead and fast forward it to 4 minutes in.
It's not just the technical support, it's not just the mentorship, it's not just access to resources or even
I knew it.
the
We
peer group
practiced
that
the
they
vocal
put
cue. You
together.
guys had a great intro. I
It's
knew I
really
couldn't
the
top
fact
that.
I know that they're a one-stop shop, and that
No
makes
worries.
me feel
Go ahead and
confident
close it down.
about what I need to do as an entrepreneur. But to know that they bring a whole suite of services.
I tried to be as fancy. I knew that
to-
wasn't going to work out, but no worries. Go ahead and just close it down. All right, so let me tell you what you were going to see in that video. I assure you it was riveting. Let me introduce you real quick to Nick. So Nick Swen lives in North Peoria. 4 years ago, Nick attended a workshop in one of Peoria's many libraries that we helped facilitate called Turning Your Side Hustle into a Full-Time Venture. The next day, Nick left his full-time job as a programmer to pursue his passion of bringing coding education to everyone equally across the United States. He's been working with Peoria Forward ever since to bring his dream to a reality. I took this photo 2 weeks ago of Nick and his now 22-member team, Permino Tech. Since we started working with Nick, he has been able to launch not only 25 different partnerships with community colleges across the country, he's also been able to secure over $1 million in outside seed funding and is well positioned to continue to grow and accelerate in the coming years, especially in response to COVID. So Nick is just one example of the many, many success stories that we have as part of Peoria Forward. And so I was asked to come here tonight to share a little bit about Peoria Forward. I am excited to share with you what we've been doing for the last 4 years, what Peoria Forward is, to talk a little bit about the future, and then leave plenty of time for questions from all of you on what it looks like. Because my real objective is I know all of you are currently leaders in the community with a variety of different backgrounds, and Peoria Forward has always been grounded in how can we continue to work with all of the members of Peoria to really advance the livability and the resilience of the Peoria community. And so hopefully by the end of today, I'll give you a couple of ideas on how we can continue to collaborate in the future. Wrong way. So let me describe a little bit about what Peoria Forward is and how we got started. I know I have a couple of Sun Devils sitting in front of me because I'm pretty good at LinkedIn, so go Devils. And we always have to start with what really makes ASU different, which is our charter. Thank you, Tony. He threw up the pitch. There you go. See? What really makes us different, what makes me proud to be a Sun Devil and continue to serve Arizona State University is our charter. And one of our critical pieces of our charter is that we are not going to be defined by whom we exclude, but instead who we include, and especially when it comes to workforce development and supporting entrepreneurs. And that last piece of the charter, assuming the fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, and cultural overall health of the communities in which we are part of, is really fundamental to why this partnership is a great piece of how we can embed within the communities and work strategically with the cities across the Phoenix metro area. So Peoria Forward is a high-impact partnership to grow and scale the entrepreneurial ecosystem and accelerate economic development. If you're not familiar with the word entrepreneurial ecosystem, I say it about a dozen times a day, so it's one of my favorite words. But entrepreneurial ecosystems are a way to think about economic development based off of research on why some cities are able to be more resilient and create thorough communities that thrive around entrepreneurship. So when you think of communities like Austin, right? Places that are highly livable, that are exciting, that have a sense of identity, right? What makes these communities different? What makes these entrepreneurs continue to thrive? Well, what research has looked at is that it's not one particular entrepreneur that comes to the rising. It's not one particular strategy that rises above the rest. What we've been able to find out based off of best practices globally is that what makes those communities special is their ability to have a diversity of resources available and a real thought process behind the infrastructure that's built for all entrepreneurs to be able to navigate those resources. And so this has been our strategic approach here in the city of Peoria. We define entrepreneur very broadly, meaning anybody who's advancing an idea and taking and building a solution. That includes nonprofits, for-profits, high-growth ventures, artisans, all the way through to people who are just getting started in their early entrepreneurial journey. Peoria Forward started in 2018 as a strategic partnership. One of the first things that was our order of business when we came out to Peoria was to really look at what is happening out here in the West Valley. We did a thorough, what we call entrepreneurial ecosystem assessment. The bullet points you see on the slide are what we found out through that entrepreneurial ecosystem, which is that Peoria is still an emerging ecosystem. We found that there was some programs, but they weren't necessarily connected to each other. We found lots of early stage entrepreneurs, oftentimes first-time entrepreneurs, who were pursuing their entrepreneurial passion without a ton of resources or connections to the community around them. Now, from that comprehensive research and comprehensive ecosystem assessment, we put together a variety of different guidelines and recommendations on how not just ASU, but the broader ecosystem partners could all look at strategically building that infrastructure and building those best practices and various pathways specific to Peoria. So we looked at different communities across the globe and found what was some of the best practices we could take from there to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem here and make them relevant and specific to the culture and values that we have here in the city of Peoria. So back in 2018, we really did have limited feedback. We saw a couple of different silos. And then this graphic talks a little bit about how we have continued to build in that infrastructure strategically. And here's where we are today. We now have a variety of different activities that are happening across the ecosystem, but what you'll notice is important here is the connection between all of those elements within the ecosystem. I love the word ecosystem because it kind of shows how messy entrepreneurship can be and how messy ecosystem building can be. But the reality is there's a lot of strategy and thought that goes into building an entrepreneurial ecosystem. A prime example of how we've been able to move the needle and what we found in Peoria is that Peoria lacked what we call connectivity, meaning that the average person going to start a business only knew of a few resources, maybe had a couple of mentors they could ask questions to at best, but they didn't have a robust network of people that they could ask direct questions to. So we created, based off of research from the Kauffman Foundation, a measurement of connectivity that we could use to see if our pathways and if our strategy was working. We call this a connectivity score. In the 4 years since we started the partnership, the average person, the average person starting a business in the city of Peoria has gone from knowing about 9 different resources to 20.45 resources, almost doubling the number of resources that they know about and have access to. And already we've started to see some direct economic impact as a result of our approach. As I mentioned, we have a lot of different ways that we build the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Traditionally, when people hear serving entrepreneurs, they think of things like workshops or working with people one-on-one on mentoring. And what we really focus on Peoria Forward is how do we build all of those resources and the pipeline to build the workforce of the future, and a diversity of resources for the early artisans that we know are building out here in Peoria, and connections with industries and the resources within ASU. So here's just a couple of examples of some of the direct economic impact. We're currently incubating about 16 high-growth ventures, providing not just targeted support. So we'll go back to our example, Nick. Nick participates in our monthly founder meetup. We've also been able to introduce him to local investors. We've worked with him directly on what his financial strategy is. And at the same time, Nick has been able to give back to the ecosystem. So we engage him as a speaker in the libraries, giving back to the community. We regularly introduce him to new entrepreneurs who are looking to navigate the ecosystem. He also gives us a variety of support through our youth initiatives, serving as a mentor with the Peoria Met Academy and having interns within local high schools within his venture. And Nick is just a great example of, yes, we see some very cool numbers that are up there as far as economic impact, but when you really look at economic development from an entrepreneurial ecosystem's perspective, you get to see the multiplier effect that happens, that it's not just one venture moving forward, it's the entire community moving forward. And we've worked very hard to have a variety of diverse pathways. So we have programs we call Catalyst Pilots, we have trainings, we have events, and we really think about what that strategy looks like, especially in the face of COVID. As you can see, in our first year, we were supposed to have 25 programs. Based off of the need of the community and where we were, we decided 25 wasn't enough, and we actually delivered 43 different opportunities for people in the entrepreneurial ecosystem to connect. And the last 2 years are 2 numbers that I'm particularly proud of, because year 3 was the onset of COVID, and year 4 has been the last year that we've been in. And you may not know this, but a lot of things shut down during COVID, including many entrepreneurial programs. And what we said was, nope, entrepreneurs don't get to stop. We're not getting to stop either. We linked arms with our partners at the City of Peoria, as well as a variety of different partners across the community, and really pivoted and rethought how we were going to be able to serve all of the entrepreneurs that were still out there doing work. And so we've really had a lot of activity. We've been able to build momentum, and I'm proud to say you can already see the economic results coming from it. One of the important pieces that puts a little bit of a period on this first phase is in the last several months, one of the ways that we know we're getting traction is not just the momentum we've been able to build. We've also been able to, we've also gotten a variety of recognition of the work that we've been doing. So Westmark recently awarded us the Best of the West Award for Innovation and Partnership. We are now recognized by the Peoria Unified School District as Community Partner of the Year for this year, which is really exciting. And then the last award that I'll mention, which we're really proud of, is ASU recognized us with their Knowledge Enterprise Partners as one of their finalists for their outstanding community engagement here in the city of Peoria. Now, we only came in third, we were a finalist, but admittedly, the first award and the second award went to the team that built out all of the COVID clinics in the state, as well as the individual who was able to create the testing process to turn COVID tests around in 24 hours. So we were pretty proud of being at least third place amongst our colleagues there. So with all that momentum, the obvious question that we had is, how do we now create something that is sustainable long-term? Research has shown that it takes about 20 years to build a sustainable entrepreneurial ecosystem. This isn't easy work that happens overnight. So for the next 2 years, we're really turning our attention towards how do we create sustainable structures and sustainable elements that'll keep that momentum going. And our strategy for how to do that is to take what we know is working well, to take the momentum we have, and to teach emerging ecosystem partners, and this looks like a variety of different partners across the community, and helping them apply what we've learned and working side by side with them to help them build out their own internal infrastructure, so that when we move into phase 3 of ASU's support, we can continue to shift and focus on what our real role could be as a conduit of resources to ASU. But there's many local embedded resources directly serving entrepreneurs here in Peoria. So these are just a couple of examples of what we plan on that strategy and the outcome looking like, including technical assistance, continued programming, and some really specific outputs. But to put it in terms that are a little bit more manageable, I wanted to give you one prime example of the success that we're currently building on that we know is going to continue to build in years 5 and 6. When we look at what does it mean to be a high-growth entrepreneur in Peoria, we had a librarian reach out to us from the Sunrise Mountain branch of the library and say, you know what, I have a ton of people coming in and asking me about podcasting. And she said, I don't know a lot about podcasting. I listen to them myself. I could make up this content, but I know that you guys have the ability to develop something that I can't. So working with the library, we were able to identify a local expert in podcasting. We actually worked with that local expert, so how to actually structure the program to be in a hybrid format, how to break it down into a series of interactive sessions versus a person talking from the stage, and how to integrate elements that really create an entrepreneurial mindset in the average podcast builder. With that series, and this series ran in, it was a 5-week series that ran in the libraries in December, right? Anybody who has done programming in the community knows that December is a rough time to be doing programming, right? You kind of hope that people show up. You're never quite sure, but that was what time worked best for all of our partners. I'm proud to say we had over 100 people go through that program, and we had almost 30 people go through every single session across that time period. So it's just a really great example of how we were able to identify a need, work with our partners to build out some infrastructure, create some success. And now we're talking to the libraries about what would it look like to build out a podcasting mobile studio. So we have a variety of entrepreneurs that then asked us, hey, I love this podcasting thing, I'm starting it myself, but I live in Peoria. That means that when I'm recording my podcast, I have kids and dogs in the background. I need a quiet place to be able to launch this business. And so we're working now to build out that infrastructure, to be able to provide them with a variety of resources in a way that is innovative, in a way that fits with the needs of the entrepreneurs within Peoria. And so that's just one key example of how we're going to continue to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem out here in Peoria. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner Waitman.
A wonderful presentation. I'm not a Sun Devil, but we have an active group of young sorority sisters there, and I'm part of an advising group, so I spend a lot of time at ASU as we check on them. I do want to ask a few questions. I'm a huge fan of Peoria Forward. I think it's great. I think it's innovative. Being a young professional myself, I think that it's going to definitely show success in the coming years as we're growing. We're rapidly growing in the city, and we need to kind of, in that way, kind of look forward to what we're going to have. So for the vision that we're seeing as far as Peoria growing, I think it's going to be great. I do have a few questions. I think I want to backtrack because I think someone spoke on I think this was David, spoke on Westmark, correct? Did you speak on Westmark? Okay. So I think it was 45.5% or 49.5% of growth that you guys were looking to attain, correct? Were these numbers within a COVID period? Did we calculate pandemics and things that can happen, or was this research done prior to COVID?
Chairman, Commission Member Waitman, I believe that number was pre-COVID because that came out of the pipeline report that was essentially completed right about that time. The data gathering had been done in the time period before that. I'm not sure if Westmark and how they're addressing any updates to the workforce pipeline. Obviously, there's been a number of changes in the way not so much the unemployment rate, but the participation rate has changed. So I would have to get that figure and update it. But yes, as far as population growth, we do see that. One thing that is interesting is that West MEC actually commissioned a report a couple of years ago, last year, that looked at high school growth. And in many areas, it's either flat or falling. And in only a few areas, it's growing. And Peoria is one of the areas where it was growing because of our young population, our youth, the attraction of the quality of life. But in many other areas, it was falling. So it's not a plus for us, but it's something that we need to plan on, that we are going to get that growth and what kind of jobs we can provide.
Thank you, thank you. I do think it's successful, but just being in the HR and staffing industry myself, as we know, there are challenges. I mean, we even have challenges trying to get people to work for the city, right? So I just kind of want to see an accurate number so that we can see what the projected growth would be for sure within our city, and taking these, pandemics and things that can happen in consideration, right? I really liked, thank you so much. I think that answered my question. I really liked when you mentioned the founder group. I think the founder group is amazing. So approximately how large is a founder group for Peoria, Peoria Forward, obviously?
Yeah, currently we're having about 5 to 6 different founders that are regularly engaging in that particular program. Again, it's one of about 30 different pathways that we have running at any given point in time. And the founder group is really designed for our high growth ventures. And it was based off of their need to find similar stage, similar high growth founders. And what we've done that's a little bit unique in Peoria Forward that the founder group really exemplifies is we have listened to what is their needs. So one of the things we heard from founders is, I don't have time to get to an in-person event. I don't want to drive downtown. It needs to be quick and to the point. And so we built out that program to be 1 hour, first Friday of every month. Everybody comes together, and we have built a lot of trust around those 6 or 7 different founders that regularly rotate in. There's no membership requirement. They don't have to come. So we'll have a fluctuation at times. Different founders will pop in and out, but we currently have a core group of about 6 different founders who regularly attend that program.
Wonderful. Just a few more questions, because I think it's so interesting, and I think, these are things that are going to be addressed. So we have about 5 to 6 founders, and then Peoria Forward. If you can give me an approximate number, how big is this community now at this moment?
Great question. So what I can tell you is in this number fluctuates, right? What we have seen in the last 6 months is we've been able to engage over 800 entrepreneurs in entrepreneurial programming in the last 6 months. That is a very large number for us, and that is growth considerably higher than it was 4 years ago. Now again, we define entrepreneur very broadly. meaning everything from, I currently spent 2 hours today working with 2 high school students that are already on the fast track to growing their artisan business, all the way through to high growth businesses. So it is still an emerging community. We still have a lot of diversity that's there. In comparison to some of the other communities in which ASU is embedded, we don't see a ton of demand yet, but we definitely have that growing momentum, and our ability to be inclusive and intentionally diverse in who we serve has really helped us build that momentum in building that real entrepreneurial community, and even having people in Peoria define themselves as entrepreneurs has been something that we've continued to build out that culture so that people will start to see and value that entrepreneurial spirit within themselves and their neighbors.
I love it, I love it. And I have one last question, because I think this is amazing. I think this is something that the city very much so would benefit from. So we have about 5 to 6 in the founders group. So with this large community, how do we decide who gets to be part of this founders group? Because they're getting they're getting resources, they're getting introduced to investors, right? Which we can't do that for 800 people. So how do we decide? Of course, this is the stages of their business. We have to make sure that the entire business plan, and I'm reckoning these are the people that stick to the program, that develop their business through Peoria Forward. But how do we decide the people that we want to pick to introduce to investors?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. That's a great question. We hold our values of inclusion very dear to us. And you saw in the charter that is a piece of what makes ASU unique and different. And so a piece of how we have made those available to everybody in that resource is really being hyper aware and being very intentional about how we are radically inclusive of everybody. We consistently put out all of the different opportunities that are available. We meet with people one-on-one depending on their stage, and we usually recommend 3 or 4 different resources. But we have a variety of channels, including our newsletter, which is our main form of communication with people, where we regularly advertise a variety of different opportunities, and we don't have requirements or restrictions around who attends that. So we really focus on how do we make sure we have targeted programs that serve specific stages with specific needs, yet individualized pathways that allow anybody to opt in. And so how do we make those still welcoming? So that, it's a great question, and that Founder Friday, the reason we only have 6 people is because that was a tool that was designed, and in its communication and in its marketing, it really speaks to a specific stage of business and the specific type of entrepreneur that is looking for that support. So we really build in a lot of strategy around how do we market, how do we engage, and how do we make sure that we're consistently inclusive of all entrepreneurs and what that means to be an entrepreneur. So that is just one example of how from that 800, it gets down to one specific resource that is most targeted for those people in that stage. But the short answer is they opt in, and we make sure that they're aware of every opportunity that's out there, and that we make everybody feel welcome at any given Peoria Forward pathway.
Thank you, thank you. I think that's wonderful. I really think it's wonderful. So I just want to make sure that I've seen within the BIPOC community, it's very hard for them to get these resources, right? And myself, you know, thinking about the young sorority sisters that we have there that are an active part of the NPHC community, I just want to make sure, and as you mentioned, we're very diverse, very inclusive. I've just seen a shortage of people being able to get those connections, get those big time investors, right? So just as long as we can be inclusive and make sure that we have that community engagement as we kind of go widespread and have a diverse look of businesses and type of businesses and what type of people we want to attract, I think it's going to be wonderful as Peoria grows so that we have different businesses that speak to different communities. I think it's wonderful. And I do want to give a comment on the podcasting. I think it's wonderful, but I definitely am looking forward to seeing some of these podcasts go to profit because I think they're so wonderful. But I see so many podcasters just working for free. So I'm hoping to see, you know, some great, amazing business plans put together for subscriptions, and maybe even seeing the city promoting some of those things, right, to the communities, targeting the right public and people. I'm sorry, I went to school for PR and marketing, so I just want to make sure this went well.
Absolutely, Commissioner, and that is a piece of what that strategy was it's not just how to start a podcast, but that's really what the Institute brings to the table, is how do you still have an entrepreneurial mindset around podcasting, and that's what we were really able to infuse in a lot of that programming, and what we hope will be the continued iteration of that program moving forward. And then one last note on the inclusion, because I could talk about this for a while, but one of my points of pride is that Peoria Forward in particular consistently tracks above what our community looks like in terms of our inclusion metrics on all of our events and programming. And so we actually really focus on how do we empower the voices of the BIPOC community so that it is intentionally inclusive and put them at the front and center of the conversation. And our strategy moving forward is we've been very inclusive, we're very proud of our metrics, and we track those very closely, is how do we continue to empower the voices that can authentically speak to those communities. And that's the ones that we're targeting for our programming moving forward and to continue to develop those resources. As ASU, we know we're a major institute, and there's going to be institutionalized barriers to people accessing our resources. So we're looking at how do we empower all of those emerging voices in the ecosystem to have a level of quality and reach to be able to reach all the entrepreneurs that they want to serve.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair Alsup. I know I was a little long-winded, but I am a huge fan, and thank you for answering all those questions. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
I have one additional question. Is the Peoria Forward program something exclusive between Peoria and ASU? Are there other similar programs for other cities in the Valley?
Great question. Thank you, Chair. I am part of a diverse team that is socially embedded in a lot of different communities, but the strategic partnership between our institute and the city of Peoria is currently pretty unique in how it's been created and how it's been structured. So we do have partnerships with, for example, the city of Chandler. We have the Arizona Chandler Innovation Center that we help build out and man and program. We're currently launching out in Mesa a program to build out an innovation space there. But Peoria Forward was really created with the specific needs of the city of Peoria in mind. And so there are other communities that have different elements. I will say I have a lot of pride being from Peoria that the Peoria Forward Partnership is probably one of the more robust and comprehensive partnerships, and we've been able to get a lot of traction, and we're now looking at some of the pathways we built here in Peoria. We have a variety of other communities reaching out to us on a fairly regular basis asking how do they build the type of resources they're seeing come out of Peoria in their own community.
So the reason I ask, in your opinion, maybe we're talking apples to oranges here, but how do we compare relative to other cities, cities that are peripheral around Phoenix?
Thank you, Chair, I think, because that's a challenging question to ask when I know I'm being streamed live, right? So maybe it's a different question when we're not being streamed. Like I said, I'm a Peoria native, so I definitely have a little bit of bias. I think at the same time, what I will say is Peoria is an emerging ecosystem when it comes to our values around entrepreneurship and innovation. So the city of Peoria has many key values around hard work, around being professional, around a livability standard, and it's taken some time for us to figure out how to translate those real inherent, unique differentiators of this community to be entrepreneurial. And what does it mean to be entrepreneurial, and what does it mean to be innovative? So we have a lot of really great things happening. We definitely are early in our development in comparison to some other communities that are 10, 15 years into building out their entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? So especially the communities that have already some success stories in the East Valley or in North Scottsdale, we're definitely not at the same level of development, but I think that the city of Peoria has been very wise in investing and how they've invested. And instead of looking at smaller partnerships or episodic investment, their partnership with ASU has allowed them to be more strategic, has allowed us to build out an infrastructure that has a lot more longevity in comparison to other cities that we see in the Phoenix metro area.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, Director Hawkins, thank you so much for bringing this information to the commission, because as we're looking at planning and zoning, it's critical that we're constantly thinking about economic impact or economic development in Peoria. So actually my comment is for Director Valenzuela. You talked about Embry-Riddle University. Great institution. They do have a satellite location at Luke Air Force Base, so there might be an opportunity to expand into Peoria for the Peoria residents and also for our servicemen and women at Luke Air Force Base. So great institution. They do have a satellite location not far.
Chair, Commission Member Schaefer, absolutely, because I did my MBA through 3 or 4 different campuses throughout the valley, in fact. So I did the worldwide MBA program through the Chandler campus, which was originally based at Williams Gateway Airport, moved to Chandler. I also went to the Sky Harbor facility, and then early version of online. Certainly aware of the Luke Air Force Base component to that, and that's actually another big reason why we wanted to go after Embry-Riddle. There's a lot of those members. When I mentioned that they weren't in the valley, I meant as a larger campus that we're used to. The service members that are coming out of Embry-Riddle with new skill sets and new degrees and programs, I went to school with them, and I saw how they were adjusting, and they have experience. They just needed to shape it into an area that we wanted them to go into. So that's absolutely why I thought it would be very important to reach out to them, because I just wasn't hearing about them in any of these programs, and yet there's this world-class engineering up there. And I remember when I graduated, there was a kid, and I do mean kid, about 19 years old, going into this business as one of their top cybersecurity students or workers. And I think he was making probably 6 figures right out of college. Their cybersecurity program up there is absolutely fantastic. And when Director Stein and I were in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago meeting with site selection consultants, they pointed out that one of the best office users to go after, so if we're talking about product related uses, was cybersecurity, because those people needed to be in offices that were secure, with secure access and networks. So that was an area that justified how we had included that in our business attraction strategy directly back here as a factor of workforce development.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? I have a question for Jen. And maybe this is for another presentation, but was it on scope tonight or another night to talk about locates and what opportunities we're seeing in our vacant land in the north side of Peoria?
Thank you, Chair, for your question. And that is definitely a great topic for an upcoming agenda item, because there is so much activity out there in Peoria, and so much we're excited that we're actively recruiting and attracting and getting incredible interest and response. We do have strategic parcels throughout the city of Peoria, which we are focusing our energy on, and there's definitely targeted industries as well. So that would make a really good future topic, and we'd be happy to share that information with you.
I particularly would like to see that, absolutely. I don't know how everyone else feels, but it's what can we be doing as a commission to make sure that those, we remove any barriers to entry for large locates in Peoria?
Thank you. That'd be great, and we need ambassadors, right? And so this is a great starting point to help our attraction efforts. So I would look forward to discussing that more.
Thank you. All right, well, with that, are we done with item 4R then?
Yes, Mr. Chair, unless there's any additional questions, we are done with that.
All right. Sorry, Commissioner Hutchinson, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
No worries, Chair. I was late to the button. Well, thank you all for the presentations tonight. I do appreciate all of the information provided. It's like the commissioner said, this is a huge part of the planning and the development of our community. And I do appreciate a lot of the efforts on the collaboration and for the business community, and having those resources of being able to start a new business and be able to have the open line of communication to others that have done it before, and really had provide a resource to them to draw upon and be successful. I continue to be concerned, though, for the the bottom up, if you will, the workers, the people that are going to go to work for these companies. I still don't feel like we're creating a place where people who wage and hour employees that go to work every day can find a job in this community and live in this community at the same time. Westmark did a report on this probably it was before COVID, so 4 or 5 years ago, about the alarming rate of eastbound traffic in the morning from the West Valley. And I still really don't see, I don't see the large corporate headquarters, the large companies that would provide those livable wages that people can actually live, work, and play in our community. And I run an electrician's training program, right? So we have an apprenticeship program. It's, larger than it's ever been in its history. It's right in the center of the valley. We refer apprentices to employment, to several dozen contractors who do work. And I have probably over 100 in the Peoria and Surprise area apprentices that are going to work, and every single one of them commutes to Chandler, Mesa, East Valley sites where they have good jobs, security. They have employment sectors that support everybody from the bottom up, and we don't have that crowd. I wish I had the right answer and the right suggestions, but it just doesn't seem. It seems like we still fall short on those real secure opportunities for our people who turn a wrench for a living.
Mr. Chair and Commission Member Hutchinson, you raised an excellent point, and I'm very well aware of this since through my work experience, has primarily been East Valley. I worked for the town of Gilbert for 9 years. I worked over at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport for another 7, and I worked for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council for 3. I actually still live in West Chandler, and I commute here, actually, so I try to take care of that part for you on my own. But the 202 opened up a lot of possibilities of getting traffic and getting labor to this area of town, and we've seen that reflected in some of our drive time maps. You're absolutely correct in that there is a lot of traffic that goes out east, but I would like to make sure it's put into perspective. I remember a study that was done that showed which cities and what their outbound percentages were. Now, some are better than others, but basically, except for Phoenix and Tempe, every city has the majority of their population leave the city. Now, we are probably a little higher than we would like to be, but at the same time, you're going to be seeing before you, hopefully within the next couple of months or so, some very attractive projects that are trying to make a difference to that. At the same time, we're facing some larger issues. Commissioner Member Waitman, you are in HR, you see exactly how hard it is to find labor, but also keep labor and retain it. Those are larger issues than anybody's able to answer. We're absolutely marketing and doing our best very clearly with companies to show them that when they're looking at a place, this is the place where people want to be, where they want to live, where they want to work, and want to play. Dr. Stein has been very strong in delivering that message to many of these key companies that we've talked to, and it does have an effect. Labor and quality of life is rolling higher. When we actually had some developers from Scottsdale out here across the 17 to get them interested and talk to them, there was a few misconceptions that we were able to overcome simply by them returning to their office at Kierland. They were leaving close to 5 o'clock, and we told them it's going to be about 20 minutes. And they said, there's no way it's going to be 20 minutes. We're traffic, blah, blah, blah. Jen said, time it and call me. 22 minutes from this office to downtown to Kierland. They were absolutely amazed. And that's the point that we keep trying to make, is that it's here. When we talk to some of these semiconductor companies, tech companies, entrepreneurs, everybody, we point out that Honeywell Aerospace has 2 major facilities up here. USAA hired over 1,000 technology professionals up north. And basically TSMC, locating up in that north area, has rewritten over 30 square miles. Not to tell Chris he needs to update the general plan that you just approved, but the simple fact is, jobs leave the community, and you can't not take an advantage of a TSMC. And the companies that are contacting us, that we are reaching out to, are saying that that's the place that we want to be. I mean, they see the setting, they see the lake, they see everything, and go, I can't believe I can work here. I'll buy this house. In fact, I was just given a study by a relocation group that showed that our average housing cost was still significantly lower than most every other place in the valley. So our high quality of life, more affordable housing, and the proximity to tech jobs that are coming in, all these elements are the ones that we take every day to make sure that we are trying to reverse as much of that commute. And it's kind of funny, you ask about what we can do. Well, make sure when we bring a Thai restaurant through, that it gets just as much importance, because through Jen's contact at TSMC and talking with some of these others, they said, well, what can we provide? And we're thinking workforce development. They said, well, we're going to have a few thousand Taiwanese families coming in. We're going to need some great restaurants. We're going to need a supermarket. We're going to need transportation services. POGO becomes very important now. So all of these elements were pieces that we didn't think about. We brought that forward to some folks over at Vistancia, and now they are considering how to add amenities that, in ways that maybe we hadn't thought of before. I'm certainly aware of that commute in that shed. It is one of those things, but at the same time, when we start to establish quality jobs here in greater numbers than we have, I think there's going to be a pull coming back this way in many ways. There's also going to be such a development of people who are finally staying home to work and do those things. And it's going to be a long process. I mean, you got to remember, Silicon Valley was an overnight success after 40 years. You know, we talk a lot about downtown Gilbert. That was an overnight success after 20 years. Kristen is absolutely right. As long as we continue to work all together in building this, you know, Peoria is going to be at the center of the Northwest Valley, of a large economic engine that is coming, and we all see it and know it.
I just want to quickly add, Chair and Commissioners, we're also changing the narrative. I think that's really important in our messaging when we're outreaching, is that we have a comprehensive strategic plan, which we'll incorporate in the next presentation, but it's about really conveying what Peoria has access to, all the amenities, the assets, the infrastructure, the transportation, but really the workforce development strategy is key, because we're doing a deep dive, and we can say, without, I can tell you a little secret, but I can't announce the company, we can say, well, we know 25% of your workforce is coming from Peoria. We have incredible research. In fact, our team, Amber's here, Susanna's here, work really hard. We're all working hard to kind of break that down so we can actually go after potential companies that really rely on a certain specific workforce and say, we have it. Here's who's in our backyard.
Thank you for the comments. I do have a follow-up question. I hope I can get your frank opinion on it. We have some controversial zoning cases coming up on the north side of the city, and I am frequently concerned that R16 throughout the rest of Peoria is inconsistent with becoming an employment center. What do you hear from employers when they're looking for diversity in housing in the cities that they locate in?
Chair, also, if I heard the question, you said the change of R16 to industrial or to employment?
What housing stock are employers looking for? My concern is we have a lack of diversity of housing in Peoria, and if we want to change the direction, we need to relook the way we look at zoning cases.
Certainly, variety in housing is important. A lot of it is related to the type of company and what kind of wages they're paying. So for some of the companies that we've talked to, they need everything from executive level country club style housing all the way down to worker housing. It's a hard question to answer because outside of what the employers are looking for, you know, what do our citizens need? I mean, housing costs have gone up 35% in the last year. Wages, there's no way wages can match that. So it's hard. It's a difficult question, and one that we really can't answer fully, except to say that when we talk to employers, we show them some of the diversity that we do have here, especially even through the northern area. There's actually surprising variety up there, from acre lots, ranchettes, down to new multifamily projects coming in. I think multifamily is going to be probably more important in the coming next 2 to 3 years because there is an affordability that's somewhat there. But at the same time, the number of employees and the number of workers that are coming in are going to far outstrip the supply that we have, or even that we could add. Like I said, the numbers that we heard of what could be brought in just associated with those suppliers is tremendous outside of everything else. I would say that as long as the developments continue to be of high quality, as long as they continue to be close to the amenities that we continue to support and put into place, like Paloma and some of these other pieces, I think the housing will so much take care of itself. But from my recollection of North Peoria, really the next pieces that are coming up are much larger parcels. So we're going to have to look at those more as a larger development as opposed to just simply housing. So it's a tough question, and I don't think a lot of people have an exact answer, because for one company, we've seen they need this, and then for others, they need this. I haven't seen any consistent response outside of, you guys seem to be a little bit more affordable than everybody else, and that's been a key driver. Ultimately, the quality of life piece is growing and growing and growing, and especially now that we work where, we live where we work more and more. In fact, if you take a look at Tempe Town Lake, almost all of those developments are connected with the trail system. And that's extremely important in some of our development that we should be looking at, especially we've looked at that at P83, and that's a key component that we see in other places. I think if you have access to those office projects with trails and other things to residential pieces, I think that might be interesting. I think that might be a good concept, and that's something we've talked about at Vistancia.
Exactly. I was going to say, Chair, just to again add, with the companies, we're talking to a number of companies right now. Daily, we're talking to companies. They ask about mixed use and how that application works, where you have the multifamily and, combined with the retail restaurant or company. So there is a strong desire, and a common question is, how do we approach mixed use development?
And actually, we did talk to one prospective developer who talked about a multifamily product that had a center dedicated to work from home, basically a shared workspace within the apartment complex. Some innovative ideas with regard to that. So it's not so much, I think, the housing type, but what kind of pieces are they putting into the housing that make it effective for working at home in such a way that, if a lot of the labor force has left the workforce to work at home, to be entrepreneurs, thanks to Kristen, thank you, then what are the pieces that are included in some of those that we can enhance the ability for a home entrepreneur to be successful?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Commissioners, any other comments on this? All right, thank you.
Thank
you.
We'll proceed to
Thank you so much.
call to the public on any non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll proceed to item number 5, reports from staff.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I don't think we have a report other to indicate that our next meeting is going to be March 3rd. We do have some items that evening, so that's it tonight.
All right. Do we have any updates or report on current events from the commission? All right, no further business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.